Bhagavatam. The meditation on Krishna's pastimes. Then various types of Vedic rituals and ceremonies were performed with the help of the Brahmanas. Sorry, I'm missing a sentence here. Mother Yashoda immediately took the child on her lap and allowed him to do what? What do you think Mother Yashoda did next? What did she allow Krishna to do?
Suck her breast.
Yes, she allowed him to suck her breast. The various types of Vedic ritualistic ceremonies were performed with the help of the Brahmanas. Not knowing the real identity of the child, the Brahmanas showered the child with blessings. Another day, Mother Yashoda was sitting with her child on her lap. She suddenly observed that he had assumed the weight of the entire universe. She was so astonished that she had to put the child down. And in the meantime, Trinavarta, one of the servants of Kamsa, immediately appeared there as a whirlwind and took the child away. The whole tract of land known as Gokula became surcharged with dust. No one could see where the child had been taken, and all the gopis were overwhelmed because he had been taken away in the dust storm. But up in the sky, the Asura, being overburdened by the child, could not carry the child far away, although he also could not drop the child, because why he dropped the child?
Krishna was holding on tight.
Yes. The child had caught him so tightly that it was difficult for him to separate the child from his body.
Krishna kicked the cord. Did it mention that there was a demon in the cord?
It is mentioned, I think, in the commentaries. We'll see. Thus Trinavarta himself fell down from a very great height, the child grasping him tightly by the shoulder, and immediately died. The demon having fallen, the gopis picked the child up and delivered him to the lap of Mother Yashoda. Thus Mother Yashoda was struck with wonder, but because of Yogamaya's influence, no one could understand who Krishna was and what had actually happened. Rather, everyone began to praise the fortune for. Rather, everyone began to praise fortune, destiny, for the child's having been saved from such a calamity. Nanda Maharaj, of course, was thinking of the wonderful foretelling of Vasudeva and began to praise him as a great yogi. What had Vasudeva foretold? Anyone remembers?
He said that there's going to be some trouble.
Yeah, there's going to be some. They just met in some previous chapter, and he said, like, just take care of him because there's going to be issues. Later, when the child was on the lap of Mother Yashoda, the child yawned, and Mother Yashoda could see within his mouth. What did she see there? The entire universal manifestation. So we see this beautiful interaction between Krishna's opulence, his amazing opulence, and the sweetness. He goes from like this child so heavy that a very powerful demon can even like carry him to the lap of Mother Yashoda, sucking her breast. So this is a very beautiful display of Krishna's going from his Aishwarya, from his great majestic opulence, into his Madhurya, his great sweetness in relationship with his devotees. Very, very nice. This is the unique feature of Krishna's pastimes. So we'll read text 1 and 2, and also text 3. Shri Rajavacha. Are we? Oh no, you don't have it with you, right? Well, I can just chant. Shri Rajavacha yena avatarena Bhagavan Haririshwaraha Karoti Karna Ramyani Manogyani Chana Prabho Yachrinvato Paicharatir Vidrishna Sattvam Chasudayatya Chirena Pumsaha Bhaktir Harau Tat Purushe Sakyam Tadeva Haram Vadamanyase Chet. King Parikshit said, My Lord, Shukadeva Goswami, all the various activities exhibited by the incarnations of the Supreme Lord are certainly pleasing to the ear and to the mind. Simply by one's hearing of these activities, the dirty things in one's mind immediately vanish. Generally, we are reluctant to hear about activities of the Lord, but Krishna's childhood activities are so attractive that they are automatically pleasing to the mind and ear. Thus, one's attachment for hearing about material things, which is the root cause of material existence, vanishes, and one gradually develops devotional service to the Supreme Lord, attachment for Him, and friendship with devotees who give us the contribution of Krishna consciousness. If you think it fit, kindly speak about those activities of the Lord. Purport. Krishna bahimukha haya bhoga vancha kare nikatustamaya tare japatiya dhare. Our material existence is maya, or illusion, in which we desire different varieties of material enjoyment and therefore change to different varieties of bodies. Brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra rudhani maya. Asanapi kleshada asadeha. As long as we have these temporary bodies, they give us many varieties of tribulation. Adhyadmika, adhibhautika, adidaivika. Anyone knows those terms? Adhyadmika, adhibhautika, adidaivika.
Suffering caused by oneself, suffering caused by others, and suffering caused by the Lord.
Yeah, so it's adhyadmika, suffering from one's own mind and body. Adhyadmika, pertaining to the Atma, in this case, oneself, which in this case, oneself actually doesn't give suffering, one's spiritual self. Sometimes Atma also means body and mind. So one's body and mind give suffering. That's actually our main suffering. Then Adibhautika, other living beings, and Adidaivika, the universe. That usually refers to material calamities like storms, like heat, like floods, and so forth. So Prabhupada says we desire different varieties of material enjoyment and therefore change to different varieties of bodies. This is, this desiring for material enjoyment, this is the root cause of all suffering. But this root cause of suffering can be removed by revival of our Krishna consciousness. All the Vedic literatures presented by Vasudeva and other great sages are therefore intended to revive our Krishna consciousness, which begins to revive with Shravana Kirtanam, Srinvatam, Swakata Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vedic literatures exist simply to give us a chance to hear about Krishna. Krishna has different avatars or incarnations, all of which are wonderful and which arouse one's inquisitiveness. But generally such avatars as Matsya, Kurma, and Varaha are not as attractive as Krishna. First of all, however, we have no attraction for hearing about Krishna. And this is the root cause of our suffering. But Parikshit Maharaj specifically mentions that the wonderful activities of baby Krishna, which amazed Mother Yashoda and the other inhabitants of Braja, are especially attractive. From the beginning of his childhood, Krishna killed Putana, Trinavarta, Shakatasura, and showed the entire universe within his mouth. Thus the pastimes of Krishna, one after another, kept Mother Yashoda and the inhabitants of Braja in great astonishment. The process to revive one's Krishna consciousness is adau shraddha tata sadhu sangha. The pastimes of Krishna can be properly received from devotees. If one has developed a bit of Krishna consciousness by hearing from Vaishnavas about the activities of Krishna, one becomes attracted to Vaishnavas who are interested only in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj recommends that one hear about Krishna's childhood activities, which are more attractive than the activities of other incarnations, such as Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, and Varaha. Waiting to hear more and more from Sukadeva Goswami, Maharaj Parikshit requested him to continue describing Krishna's childhood activities, which are especially easy to hear and which create more and more inquisitiveness. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Akshurumilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Titan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So there's a lot of reading today. Big introduction, long translation and Prabhupada. We still have one verse to go also, but we'll break it up a little bit. So, Maharaj, we're hearing here from Maharaj Parikshit in this verse, his experience. We very much read the Srimad Bhagavatam through the experience of Parikshit. Very much like we read the Bhagavad Gita through the experience of Arjuna. So let us try to in order to really understand, we have to kind of go a little bit into the mind of Maharaj Parikshit, to kind of understand it from his perspective and what he's experiencing. And we have to kind of vicariously experience Srimad Bhagavatam through him. And that's very nice to understand it like that, because it kind of arouses our interest and our taste. So what is he experiencing? We've heard this before at the beginning of the 10th canto. He exclaimed, Shukadeva Goswami, I've been fasting for 7 days. Oh, I don't know how many days, but for many days already. He's not eating, not sleeping, not even drinking. So, but I don't feel any trouble, because I'm continuously drinking the nectar of these pastimes of Lord Krishna and his different incarnations. So you go on speaking, you go on, don't worry. He's saying, don't keep it short. Don't give me a shortcut. Don't think, oh, he's been fasting for 4 days and he must be tired. Just go on, go on, go on. I just want to hear nothing else. Don't want to do anything else. Don't want to be anywhere else. I just want to go on hearing and hearing and hearing. So this is Maharaj Parikshit. He's the epitome. He's the example of hearing. So in these verses, we get a little glimpse of his mind, what he's feeling. And this may inspire us. Maybe we don't have that taste, but it may arouse that interest for us to like, oh, I would like to be. If he's experiencing this, this must be very interesting. So it opens up our mind to this possibility of actually hearing with relish. So let's look at what he's saying again. So yena avatarena Bhagavan Hari Ishvara. So the Lord Hari Ishvara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whichever incarnation is here, yena avatarena Karoti Karna Ramyani. He what does he do? He Karna Ramyani, he pleases the ears. And Manogyani China Prabhu. And he is very Manogyani, means very attractive to the mind. So this is what he's feeling. So this is like being like, sometimes we hear a very sweet song or very sweet sounds. And it's like Karna Ramyani, it pleases our ears. Or we see something very beautiful, hear something very beautiful, and it captures our mind. So that's what he's experiencing. Like my ears are just like jumping. I want to hear this. And my heart is so attractive to this. So when we read this, we can think, how much am I having this experience? And then we say, well, many times I'm more interested in my Facebook or Instagram than actually like opening up the Krishna book or reading the news or whatever. But at the same time, we can also think, but yeah, I do have some experience of this, right? I think, why do we accept Krishna as God? Really think about this. I thought about this deeply. Like, because from where we come from, in our kind of very scientific worldview, and very, where everything has to be measured and everything has to be experienced and everything has to be empirically verified. We look at Krishna's pastimes and we think, we can't help but look at this as like somewhat mythological, right? Somewhat like a story. Once I was in a circle with devotees reading the Krishna book, and there were a few devotees there who were born in Krishna consciousness. And I saw such a distinct experience. I felt a distinct experience of the reading. That when they were reading, it was they were there in a different way. So I asked one of the devotees, his name is Karnamrita, one nice Vaishnava. I asked him, like, I expressed my mind what I felt. And he said, yes, you know why that is? Because we hear this as children. We grew up, as a child, you don't have all these conceptions of like, which are implanted within us of mythology. So for us, this is like, when we hear this, it's reality, it's Krishna. He's a real person. So that's an obstacle for us. But still, even with all those conceptions implanted within us, when we hear Krishna's pastimes, we can't help but feel elated, feel joyful, feel purified, there is an experience we get from this, and it's undeniable. And that builds our faith. So if you answer me the question, why do I believe this? Well, because, there's the whole theological aspect of like it's Shastra, and, we have imperfect senses, we cannot understand, we have very limited experience of reality. So, why not? First of all, why wouldn't this be true? Why would everything has to fit in my experience, in our limited way of thinking? So many things we can understand, including our own selves and our own consciousness. What is it? In your empirical scientific formula, explain to me what's coming. You cannot even explain yourself. So many things are not within your experience and within your empirical understanding. So that's the first point. But then why do I believe it? Well, because of the experience that by reading about Krishna, if I read the news all day, I feel absolutely and completely miserable and disturbed. And you can also do this, and you probably have the same experience, right? But if I read about Krishna all day, if I hear about Krishna all day, if I really immerse myself, and those impressions on this pastime starts to become alive, and this purifying effect of the sound vibrations piercing through my thick head and all my kind of conceptions of my upbringing, etc., in this scientific worldview. It starts to kind of touch my heart, and Krishna starts to kind of manifest there and starts to also become active in my heart. It said, Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Ridyanta Stoya Bhadrami Vidhunoti Saritsatam. Not only is the message itself Punya Shavana Kirtana, it's very auspicious. You feel this like elation from hearing these pastimes. But not only that, Krishna also starts to reciprocate when you take the trouble, but they make the effort of hearing about him. He's very pleased by that. And he starts to reciprocate from within your heart. Vidhunoti, Krishna takes out his broom and he starts to do some sweeping in there, in that heart, and some wiping and some mopping. He starts to clean our hearts. And what do we feel when our hearts becoming clean, when Krishna starts to work within? And what do we feel? We feel the modes of nature are going to the background. The passion, which is always piercing us, lust and greed and anxiety and this desire to always want more and more and more, and want this and want that and want prestige and want attention. And this is actually like a disturbance in our heart. Ignorance, this illusion, this sloth, which is always kind of this fog which is always kind of like over us to some extent, and this misunderstanding of who we are and what others are. Ignorance just bewilders us in so many different ways and creates this whole alternative reality which is not actually pleasing to us. So all those things starts to, when Krishna, that's what he cleanses, the modes of passion and ignorance. So then we start to experience a level of sattva guna in a very easy way, without having to do very elaborate meditation, following very strict diets, fasting, and all of that. It's just by hearing about Krishna, by his cleansing, sattva guna arises, and there's even an experience, even in the conditioned state, of some level of shuddha sattva, of pure goodness, because Krishna is of the nature of pure goodness. And by hearing about Krishna, we even have some experience of that, although it's still a little, it's not fully and complete. And thus our hearts feel very pleased, and our minds feel very pleased. So how does that happen? Well, it says it should happen. And if you do it, it actually happens. Put two and two together, there is what arises? Shraddha, there's faith. So it's not a blind faith. So, and when we have that experience, we should also, and read about Maharaj Parikshit's experiences and how he's hearing, and also we having a little bit of that ourselves. We should value and treasure those experiences. This, our faith is real in that sense. And when we get further encouragement from these more realized words of Parikshit, it can impel us to like, oh yeah, let me really hear and like dive deep into this. That's why it's very nice. We're getting to see Bhagavatam through the eyes of Parikshit Maharaj. Yes, Adipurusha.
My own experience. From years, I remember Lokamagala. Anyway, wonderful devotee.
No, you speak. I can listen.
Yeah, my own experience first hearing these stories, we were hippies, we used to say this, blowing my mind. It's outside my experience, expectation, imagination. It's just so unusual, right? But my experience was seeing the devotees, just like I'm having the experience today, seeing how delighted you are about this. I remember seeing this devotee, Lokamangala, talking about Krishna's pastime. I was thinking, well, he likes it. Well, not only that, he's just lit up, like you are. So, there's the narration, and then there's our own experience, but it's also seeing an actual devotee being delighted and enlivened by hearing about Krishna's pastimes is thrilling. You're having an effect on me right now. And we thank you for that. All glories to Prabhupada.
There's the credit of the Sangha of Vaishnavas. When there's interest in hearing together, then Krishna manifests. Tatra yatra kayanti vat bhakta tatra tishnami narada, Krishna says. Wherever my devotees come together and hear and chant, that's where I manifest. So that's where we can experience. So there's a very nice statement here also in the rest of the verse. So this hearing this vanishes the dirty things in the heart and purifies, sujati, purifies. And what happens? Bhakti, hara, tat purusha. The devotion arises to Krishna. And tat purusha, to his devotee. Like Maharaj Parikshit is feeling also so much bhakti. He, as you're saying, yes, we have some elation. We can only imagine the elation Shukadev Goswami is feeling and exuding, telling these pastimes. Like he's practically he's in practical ecstasy doing this. So tat purusha. So Maharaj Parikshit, his bhakti is also arising towards his spiritual master, to his Krishna's devotee. And sakyam, friendship, arises with devotees. We feel such a deep bond when we come together to hear about Krishna. It's a very special type of sakyam, of friendship, because we're sharing on such a deep level our eternal natures and our eternal relationship with Krishna. What deeper bond can one have? Friendship is all about having a bond with someone. Like, I'm sure you have friends where you can share your musical bonds with, or when we're into something, like we can create connections with that. And when we share an awakening of our spiritual nature, that arises very deep friendship. So then he says, Tad eva haram vada manyase. Haram. He says, speak this haram. Haram means necklace or garland. So Prabhupada says, the activities of the Lord. He said, it translates this word haram. The activities of the Lord, which should be heard and kept around one's neck like a garland. Like one should wear this as like an ornament, and as the garland is an ornament, and it's also the mercy of the Lord, especially this garland, because it's the mercy of Krishna. So we should wear those pastimes very close to our body and to our hearts as a beautiful garland, as a beautiful ornament. Very, very sweet. So I want to just read quickly the next verse too. Sorry, and then I'll leave some few minutes for questions. Atanyadapi Krishnasya toka charitamad-bhutam manusham lokamasajya tajatin anurundataha. Please describe other pastimes of Krishna, the Supreme Personality, who appeared on this planet Earth, imitating a human child and performing wonderful activities like killing Putana. Maharaj Parikshit requested Shukadev Goswami to narrate other childhood pastimes exhibited by Krishna while playing as a human child. The Supreme Personality of God incarnates at different times at different planets and universes, and according to the nature of those places, he exhibits his unlimited potency. That a child sitting on the lap of his mother was able to kill the gigantic Putana is extremely wonderful for the inhabitants of this planet. But on other planets, the inhabitants are more advanced, and therefore the pastimes of the Lord performs there are still more wonderful. Krishna's appearance on this planet like a human being makes us more fortunate than the demigods in the higher planets, and therefore Maharaj Parikshit was very much interested in hearing about him. So Krishna, he appears in this world exhibiting his opulence of the Supreme Lord, but also this very sweet human behavior which we can so much relate to. And that makes him that's why we're so fortunate actually to be in this human form, to actually hear and relate and connect with those pastimes. That's why even the demigods are kind of desiring to take birth on this planet. It's so easy to connect to the Supreme Lord in this most attractive form and feature. So thank you all so much. Went a little bit over time, but we still have some time for questions, comments, and reflections. It's kind of good to have a phone.
It is, right? So I experience pre-nishta, like before I'm fixed and steady in my devotional service. It's kind of like a roller coaster in terms of taste. Like sometimes I'm really eager to hear, I'm eager to chant, and I feel connected. And other times I'm trying my best. It almost seems easy, like it's just naturally coming. And other times it's just like a battle to I have to really force myself to hear and chant, and so what can I do in those moments? I mean, they're temporary, but what can I do in those moments and make those gaps between actually naturally being enthusiastic to hear? What can I do to close those gaps while I'm still, pre-nishta?
Yes. And so this is an excellent question. Because pre-nishta, like after nishta, what's the next stage of nishta? Ruchi is taste. So pre-nishta is Some taste, but not so much taste. Yeah, there's many ways how we can answer this. First of all, we have to understand what situation we're in and why we're experiencing what we're experiencing. And this is expressed by Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Instruction. He says that Tanama Rupa Charitadis Sitapya Vidya Pitopatapta Rasadashina Rochikan Kintwadarat Andudinam Kalu Seva Justa Sadvi Kramat Bhavati Tat Ganamula Hantri. So he gives us both the diagnosis and the cure. So he's saying that this Rochika, this Krishna's name, form, pastimes, and so forth, actually it's Rochika. It's very pleasing. It's very sweet. Like Rochika means sugar candy. But when you're diseased with jaundice, any one of you had jaundice here? Have you experienced this? That when you taste something sweet, it tastes very bitter?
I was born with it, so I don't remember.
Yes. So when you have jaundice, then something sweet tastes very bitter. But then what's the cure for that? Is sugarcane juice. They say. I'm taking the authority of Rupa Goswami. Did you cure it with Adipurush had jaundice and also cured it with sugarcane juice? So it's bitter, but gradually, as one is drinking it and one becomes healthy, then one starts to taste it as actually sweet. So therefore says, he says, Anudinam kalu seva justa. Anudinam. Anudinam means day after day. You just have to keep on taking the medicine and the effect will be there. So yeah, some days, some of the sweetness may come through and some days not so much. It may taste a little bitter. And but yeah, we still have to just do it. Always here, always keep the vibration going. Myself also, in my own journey, especially with reading Prabhupada's books, at some point, very early on in my spiritual life, I really liked his message, but it also felt like kind of intense to me and a little bitter, this message of like surrender. And like he's always down on the impersonal list and not quite understanding myself, my own impersonal nature. I felt like, why is he always so negative against everyone? So I had this idea of like, it kind of colored those feelings and perceptions were coloring my mind and my ability to really drink it in. So then I thought, is this true or is it my perception? So I'm saying, okay, I'm just going to assume it's my perception. So I'm going to put my perception aside. I'm just going to hear, just going to open up to the message. And then when I started doing that, then a whole different experience came about from reading Prabhupada's books. And I became very attached to reading them. So yeah, it was this kind of like putting aside, like kind of feeling a certain thing while you're doing it and being conscious and aware of it. And then saying, okay, this is my perception right now. I'm just not going to put my faith in my perception. I'm going to put my faith in the words and the potency of them and trying to open myself up to that, the other possibility. And by doing that, you can really, really make a lot of advancement in this, in getting a taste for that, for Srila Prabhupada's words, for the words of the Shastra, Krishna's pastimes. So it's a question of awareness and consciously making a decision, like, I'm not going to put my faith here, I'm going to put my faith there.
There's a verse in the second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam that says, one's occupation, one's work is a useless labor if it does not provoke and attract for hearing the message of Vasudeva. So like when we're going against the current of the material world, without sufficient hearing, we won't be able to keep going. So the awkwardness you feel you can perceive that as a hunger to hear more. And Vaishya Sheikh Babu was saying recently, if we don't hear sufficiently from scripture, we'll begin to imagine injustices. Begin to misperceive that Krishna is wonderful, Krishna is in control, Krishna knows what he's doing, let me serve Krishna, and we can relax, So that feeling of, I don't feel so good about this can be, I need this medicine. It's an understanding of our great need.
Thank you. Very, very nice question. Very relevant subject. Yeah. So I apologize to the devotees online. If there's any questions here, I think we're out of time. But thank you so much, all of you, for being here. Just as a final kind of reflection, what we take away from this, you can all think about is, what do we take away from this verse? But the passages of Krishna are attractive. When we open up to them, bhakti arises to Krishna, to his devotees, and those who narrate those pastimes. Friendship comes about between devotees, and we should wear this as a garland around our neck. So I'll leave you all with this meditation today. What does it mean to wear? He said, the activities of the Lord, we should be here and kept on the neck as a garland. What does that mean for you today? So please, all of us, let us try to take some time today with all our busy schedules. Spend a little time with Krishna's pastimes today, with the Krishna book or the nectar of devotion, and try to wear that as a garland and see what that means for us today. So I'll leave you all with that. Thank you so much. We're about to open the altar. And
Vasudeva Prabhu ki jai. Thank you very much. Very inspiring class, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Prabhupada.
Very cool. Darshan, Evan, darshan, deities.
Wait.
Front row seats.
Bhagavatam Samasti